that's passe. I've been thinking about that good news nowadays. Now I say, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so.
Love, oh love, stop making a fool of me. Yeah. Oh love. Oh. Tried to stop it, but fool of me. I know that's right, Denise. Denise Williams. Yeah, gotta cut you off though. Let me fade you out. Let me fade you out like how they do. Let me fade you out. Yeah. Hey guys, welcome to episode 106 of The Adventures of Duce Banner and His Unpopular Opinion. Thank you guys for tuning in each week. I greatly appreciate it. Call to action real quick. If you have not, please, ma'am, please, sir, please subscribe to the podcast either on iTunes or on Stitcher for Android users. iTunes for iPhone users, iPod users, and all things in between. And Stitcher for Android users. And if you are an iPod user but you like to subscribe to Stitcher, that's fine. I will keep posting these on YouTube as well. And yeah, if you prefer YouTube, that's fine too. But make sure that you subscribe there as well. I will put the link in the description. I'm lying, but I'm gonna try to. But I'm probably lying about that, but I'll try. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get right into it. I had a great birthday this past week. It was great, man. A lot of people show love and their support for me, and it was incredible. But I will say this: people, please do not wait till it's somebody's birthday or someone's funeral or a day where you're supposed to celebrate somebody. Don't let that be the only day that you do that. And I'm not saying that my friends are like that, but it's like I didn't know like how much people cared, and that sounds bad. Like I know that people care, but I didn't know. It's like, wow, I'm really loved. And maybe it's a good thing that I don't know that to that extent, because then like when I just feel like, oh, I'm loved, the feeling isn't the same, maybe. I don't know. But I don't think I'm that guy. I think I will always appreciate how someone cares for me. I'm trying to refrain from saying as much because it's just me. It's just me. So I got the as soon as I said it, I said so we got the birthday recap out the way. Um I don't know. The I guess sports maybe. Yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, it's just me. As you can see, as you can hear rather, there's nobody in here but me. It's just me again this week. Lon had some technical difficulties with some stuff, and it was okay. I kind of wanted to do this podcast by myself again this week. I enjoyed being with you guys alone, and because I never want you guys to expect something like other than excellence. So like other than like it being a good podcast, I never want you guys to say, oh well, I know what's going to happen from week to week. I don't want it to be like that. So what we did is, here I am again by myself. I don't think it'll be like that for the next 3 weeks maybe, because I plan on having guests. Hey, you hear that? I plan on having like actual guests on this show. Shout out to the people that I don't know listen to this podcast, and you've given me the thumbs up. I greatly appreciate that, because the people that are telling me that they like my podcast, I value their opinion. I think they're moderately to very intelligent people, and I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, so back to sports. This weekend, maybe I should tell y'all how my birthday went. received a lot of gifts. Shout out to Maribel Perez, who like in such a way kind of showered the brother with some stuff. I greatly appreciate her. Um, Gina Williams, who always comes through. My man Joshua, my mother, of course. And my mother, of course, is the clutchest of the clutch. Um, yeah, Joshua Green, he bought a brother some podcast equipment for the podcast. I'm gonna take it as an investment, and I'm gonna try to make good on the investment. I know I'm missing a few people. Kenny, who you heard on the podcast last week, she fed a brother. I greatly appreciate her. And all Shona Shaw. She took me out to lunch. Yeah, I was late for that, but I appreciate her for doing what she did. It was good. I'll probably go there more for. We went to Yard House. If you are in Atlanta and if you've heard of Yard House in Atlantic Station, please go to Yard House. Try that out. This isn't a restaurant podcast. I'm not a restaurant connoisseur, but you should try that out if you want to. I'm into clubs. I'm into like sandwich clubs and stuff like that. So for the first time, maybe they changed their menu. I don't know anything about it. But I had a turkey club and it was really good. Yeah. We did Escape the Room. We got out of 2 of 3 rooms in Escape the Room. I went with a few people. It was about 8 of us. And we didn't get out of the room, but we got close. She gave us clues to or she basically told us at the end of it how to get out of the room. Excuse me, how to get out of the room. We didn't. I didn't think that we were going to get out of it. I know that I wouldn't have gotten out of it, even if she gave us all the clues. But that was really fun. Went to the movies by myself. Ride Along 2 was surprisingly okay. It was okay. The trailer made it seem like it was going to be really whack, but so did the first trailer. The first trailer made it seem like it was going to be really whack. But it was one of those type. It was a typical police officer movie or a typical detective movie. You knew what was going to happen. You knew, if you seen Rush Hour, if you seen Lethal Weapon, they get fired and you're off the case and all of that stuff, and then you redeem yourself and all of that stuff. That's how it goes. So yeah, my birthday week was incredible. I haven't checked my bank account because I'm afraid to. And I think some of you know how that goes. Yeah, so moving on to sports, I don't think there's too much to talk about. March Madness started this week. Um, I like that it's called March Madness because my birthday is in March, and I think I'm mad to some degree. But that's neither here nor there. I just always liked it. Um, all I know about March Madness is that Michigan State lost, and everybody's in an uproar, and everybody's bracket is out of whack. So So that's that. That's my update for March Madness. I do not follow college basketball or college sports at all. If you're any good, you're going to the league, and that's where you'll be. I like continuity. I like continuousness, and you just don't have it in college sports unless it's like a Duke or like a really good team that's known to be good throughout the ages and all of that type of stuff. And I'm not that invested because I didn't go to any of those schools. I'm from New Jersey, and Rutgers is who we have, I suppose, and Princeton and all that. We're not really known for sports, I don't think. As far as colleges are concerned, we got a lot of great athletes that come out of New Jersey, but and we got a lot of great talent in general that comes out of New Jersey, but yeah, I don't think we're known for colleges like that. So moving on to the NBA, I would say, and we'll come back to college in a moment later on in the podcast. But the Warriors lost to the Spurs. For those of you who don't know, it was a big game. The Warriors hadn't beat the Spurs at home since February 14th. 1997. So that would equal 33 losses, 33 straight losses to the Spurs. So that was a big game. Um, I don't know, man. I don't know what happened. It was still a close game. It was good defensively on both ends. The score wasn't high. It was like 87 to 75 or something like that. Wasn't a big scoring game. Wasn't a really, yeah. It just wasn't. Steph. He just wasn't. He wasn't himself. Klay Thompson wasn't himself. The Spurs know how to defend the 3-point shot. So with that being said, the Spurs know how to defend 3-point shooters. They guarded Steph Curry like Steph Curry. They didn't guard him like he was a regular point guard or like he was a regular shooting guard or anything like that. They guarded him from half court all the way up. Hey, we know you can hit these shots. We're not worried. We're not, you know what I mean? We're stressing you, but we know that we just need to be on you. Your bread and butter is shooting threes. We know what to do. So off that, I don't want to spend time on sports too much. They're now saying, "Oh, maybe can the Warriors beat the Bulls record at this point?" The Bulls record is the Bulls franchise record and NBA record really is 72-10. The Warriors are like 62-7. So that would mean that they would, if they lost 3 more games, then they wouldn't beat it. At the best they could do is tie it. But I think that they'll pull it out. They pull it out. They play tonight. They're playing the Timberwolves. That's a W. That's a W in their sleep if they don't sleep. Um, so yeah, so off sports. Not a lot happened in sports this week. Not for me, I'll say. Um, I would talk about the young man who passed away in the NFL. I don't really have too much information on that, but that happened in sports. Um, Megatron, who recently retired, was reportedly he was on the phone with Bill Belichick from the coach of the New England Patriots, and he might be returning. So if that's what you got to do to get on a winning team, all you got to do is retire real quick and then hop on another team to get out of your contract and all that. Why don't most people do it? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he was in his contract. I have no clue. But I had the privilege of, oh yeah, shout out to the Hardens. They go to my church. They're great pillars in my church. They um yeah, what's her name? I call her Miss Shondell. I say Miss Shondell like it's one word. Her name is Shondell Harden, but I say Miss Shondell. Her birthday is the same day as mine. So like I would say for like the past 2 or 3 years, she would always ask what we're doing for our birthday. And I would always like shrug it off and joke about it and be like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm about to do this and that. And this year I took her up on the offer, you know. Um, I think this year was a year that I really needed that, from people in my church. Um, we'll get to that another time. Um, yeah, so she asked me, she said, what are we doing for our birthday? And I'm like, I'm calling your bluff this year. Like, yeah, let's do something. I'm open. I'm available. So she said, come over the house. We're gonna have dinner. Da 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 da. Had a great time with them and another family and a couple of buddies from church. It was great. While we were there, we had the privilege of watching. Um, what do you call it? An American crime story, The People versus O.J. Simpson. Saw about 4 episodes of that show. I will tell you this. I had very low expectations for this show. I'm thinking it's another money scheme for OJ to get money and all of that stuff. I hope he's getting paid from it. They're using his likeness, they're using his name, they're using his story. I don't know how that type of stuff works, but I'm hoping my phone just dropped. I'm hoping he'll get paid from that. Some way, some shape, some form, some fashion. He should get paid from that. But it's also reported that he's not watching it. He's not watching it from jail. I don't know if it's because he can't watch it from jail, or if he's not allowed, if he can't watch it from jail, or he doesn't want to watch it from jail. But nevertheless, he's not watching it. But this show, I would say the shining star, Cuba Gooding Jr. does a good job. He looks nothing like O.J. Simpson. People who can't get past people not looking like somebody that they're playing when they're a good actor, please get over it. It will stunt your vision of this show. So please get over it if you ever choose to watch it and you haven't already. But Cuba Gooding Jr. does a good job. Malcolm Jamal Warner is in there. They got a couple of like big name movie stars in there that you've seen them in a lot of movies, but you may not know their name. Courtney Vance, Courtney Vance, for those who don't know, he was the pastor and the preacher's wife, and I think he was in Law and Order for a minute. Don't quote me, but he's most noted for being Angela Bassett's husband. Sad to say. He's noted mainly for being Angela Bassett's husband, but he himself is an incredible actor. He plays Johnny Cochran in the show, and he does a stand-up job. Matter of fact, there's when we were watching the show, when we had a lot of comments, but I got to move on because I want to get to a story. I want to get to what I'm really here to talk to you guys about today. But I just want to play a snippet for you guys really fast. This is when I think they've given their opening statements and all of that. It might have been like their third time in court or whatever, and the plaintiff, what do you call it? The counselor for the plaintiff, for the people that are representing the people, he's telling the judge, like, he's making his claim to the judge and to the jury. Please don't let a certain gentleman get on the stand because of his past in regards to race and him using certain racial slurs or one racial slur in particular. Please don't put him on the stand. And here is Johnny Cochran's response, played by Courtney Vance.
Your Honor, I did not plan to speak on this matter, but I would be remiss if I did not respond to my good friend, Mr. Chris Darden. Mr. Darden's remarks this afternoon are perhaps the most incredible remarks I have heard in a court of law in my 32 years of practice. His remarks are deeply demeaning to African Americans, and so first and foremost, Your Honor, I would like to apologize to African Americans across this country. It is preposterous to say that African Americans collectively are so emotionally unstable that they cannot hear offensive words without losing their moral sense of right and wrong. They live with offensive words, offensive looks, offensive treatment every day. And so, Your Honor, I am ashamed that Mr. Darden would allow himself to become an apologist for Mark Furman. Who are any of us to testify as an expert as to what words black people can or cannot handle? Your Honor, across America, believe you me, African Americans are offended at this very moment. And so for a friend that I deeply respect, I would say this was outlandish, unfortunate, and unwarranted. Thank you.
Now, I wasn't offended until he told me I should be offended by his by the other counselor's statement. So I'm watching, I'm listening to him, and I'm thinking, hey man, he's making some good points. Like I'm just sitting there like, yeah. I don't know how you gonna get out of this one, Johnny. And Johnny, without a flinch, and everybody on the opposing end is like, I can't believe he's doing this. Is he really doing it? And I'm like, doing what? He's saying some good stuff. Like maybe you upset that he's taking this incredible approach. Johnny Cochran gets up on that stand, man, and gets up in front of them people, gets up in front of that judge, man, and just changes my whole perspective. He said that black people should be offended by the statements that he's made, and then he's like, the fact that you would say that that we can have proper judgment based upon a word, that's like you're belittling people. And I was like, yeah, yeah. I can't be objective from that? Like, I can't believe. But when you look at the case, they kind of wanted him. They wanted him on the stand because they knew that people, they still would be offended by that. So they wanted him on the stand. So it was crazy, man. You gotta watch it. Now, what I'll say about this show is, I call it the O.J. Simpson show. It's easier to say than American Crime, The People versus O.J. Simpson. I'm gonna call it the O.J. Simpson show. We call it the Simpson show, but you know how that goes. Yeah, man. I will say this. I was watching it with the brother who was showing it to us, and he was a low key fanatic about it. So he said he watches the show, but he also fact checks it. So he's saying that a lot of it is pretty accurate, but every now and then they'll throw in some Hollywood stuff. Like this one guy, he fell like in the courtroom because he was having a heart attack in the courtroom and all of that type of stuff. What really happened is, after the hearing, he went to the hospital because he was having heart palpitations and what have you. So yeah, it's a little Hollywoodish, to keep you intrigued and to keep the suspense going, because we all know, or we should all know, that life isn't like the movies in its entirety. Art reflects reality, but life doesn't always play out like drama after drama. Some people's lives, mine does, and that's why this show is called The Adventures of Duce Banner, in his unpopular opinion. But so yeah, off that. Now that I got all those things out the way, I wanted to talk to you guys about me. And I mentioned it. Here I go. I'm getting comfortable now, getting into our stride. I was just trying to get some stuff out the way, but here we go. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys about like, wow, I know what gets presented to me sometimes is like, Keith, you're not at all who I thought you would be. I'm never like anybody thinks that I would be. Never, 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 never. And I always ask, whose fault is that? Like, why am I not like how you depicted me to be? It's because you had your own expectations of me, you had your own assumptions of me, and I will always myth buster that. That's just how it is, and that's just how it's always going to be. It's not purposeful, it's just who I am. And I think earlier in my life, I had an issue with that. Like, why am I not this conventional Christian? Why am I not? Why do my views differ? Why my views always differed. Whatever side of the pendulum I was on, as far as like being radical for Christ or being, you know, as some would say, quote unquote, earthly good. You know, why did it always look different? And I still ask myself that question from time to time, but it's not a pressing question anymore. It's just as simple. The answer is as simple as God made me, and God made you. And but God has put some situations in my life to where I can pull from and say, hey, I need to be this type of person. Hey, I no longer need to be this type of person, and I shouldn't be this type of person ever again. Or I need to be this type of person to this person so that they won't have to experience what I've went through. And I think he does that for all of us, life situations in life can change you for the better or for the worse. Um, I would like to say that I've changed for the better, but a lot of times I think there's been some times where I've just allowed myself to change for the worse, and I've allowed myself to be bitter in certain circumstances, or to be hardened in certain circumstances. Um, until a better solution came along, and so yeah, I like to tell you a story about when I went off to college. And I think a lot of people they realize a metamorphosis around that time where I really changed, and it's like, yo, Keith, you grittier, you a different person. You still a Christian, but it looks way different. And why? I tell this story in a few ways to warn people about false teaching and about false doctrine, about people that you should stay away from, um, and about just how God changed my heart on a lot of issues. Um, so yeah, I'll just start it off. I don't know how to like segue into my own type of stuff, like just talking about my own story. But other than and here we go. So um, yeah, I would say from age 15 to 18, 19, I was very, 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 very zealous about God, about the word of God, about the Bible, about living quote unquote right, and all of those things. A lot of people try to attest my my Christianity or my faith to my parents. Like, oh well, your father's a pastor, and your mother raised you as a Christian. So no, my parents didn't raise me as a Christian until I said I want to be a Christian. Um, my parents would always put stuff in my way, but they didn't raise me as a Christian until I said, look, this is what I want for my life. They would always challenge me, saying, if you're a Christian, then this is what you do as a believer. My parents kind of discipled me in such a way, and I think that's good for, if your parents are good parents and they're good and they're believers, they should be one of the people that disciple you. But another thing is, I grew up, I grew up a believer because I accepted the Lord when at a very young age. I was about 4 years old when I accepted the Lord, and it really pierced me. So it didn't take me long. I just knew that um I was a sinner. I knew that I've lied when I was 4 years old. I knew that I've stolen a cookie from the cookie jar maybe when I was 4 years old. Um, I knew that I had bad thoughts. I knew that I would get there's not it's not a sin in getting angry, but I knew I would have angry thoughts when I would get angry. So I knew that even at 4 years old that I needed a savior, and and so I accepted the Lord. Now life wasn't all gravy after that. A lot of people think that life wasn't, and I'm just talking to you guys. So if I'm stumbling or whatever it is, y'all just gonna have to deal with it. I'm just telling y'all a story. So I'm saying that partially for myself. 'Cause I'm like, oh, I'm hoping I'm telling the story in such a fluid way, and it's like, nah, not today. It's not that type of podcast. We just gonna be real, even more organic than usual here. So let me move this out the way. Put my arms on the table so I can get comfortable. Yeah. So it wasn't all gravy. I was still sinning from 4 to 15. My mother and my parents and my sister, we would pray before school most days, and I would really pray like, Lord, let me be a light in school. Let me be a light in school. But as soon as school started, as soon as the bell rang, or somebody made me upset, or a teacher like just got me off kilter, or I saw a girl or something like that, I'm back to my old ways. I didn't want to be back to my old ways, but it's just what it was. Whether it be peer pressure or just the sin inside of me, it's just what it was. So yeah, I got to a point where I was listening to Christian rap and all of that type of stuff, and it was beginning to change my thinking. Like, hey man, I could still be a cool dude and be a believer. I felt like I had to just change everything about me and be a Christian, and found out that that wasn't the case. Ultimately, so that's a whole nother story. But when I was 15 years old was when I really sat and I told the Lord, I said, I want to impact my school for you. I want to change the world. I want to, because I would always pray, like, Lord, would you save everybody? Just save the world. I would always pray that, before I went to bed. Like, let the world know your love and all of that type of stuff. And it's like one of the ways that they can know my love is through you, you know? And by you, I mean myself and all those who believe, you know. And so I took that and I said, look, um, I don't really see too many people, if anybody, in my school, um, being radical for you and being just this outspoken Christian for you. I don't see it. So if it's going to be anybody, I guess it should be me. So I took that stance from 15. Again, I was never perfect in that situation. Did the sin stop? No. You know what I mean? But was it lessened? Yeah. But who cares about that? You know what I mean? And who cares? Who cares if? Well, people care about it. That's why I'm saying it. But the Lord doesn't look at the times we fail. He doesn't. He's looking at the times that we succeed. He's setting us up for success rather than failure. So here I am at 15, making my proclamation before the high school, and I'm like, look, any chance that I get, sometimes in my mind, I'm failing, like, oh, I had a chance to talk to this person about the Lord and I was afraid, or I had a chance to stand up for Jesus and I was afraid, So being a young believer, and being a young believer can come at any age, I was still young in my mindset, I might have been leaps and bounds above other people, but I was a little young still, like thinking that I had to. And I think, those are stages that you've got to go through sometimes, like where it's a lot of trial and error, and you learning who God is and God drawing near to you and God revealing himself to you and revealing things to you. So I'm um I'm 15 years old and I'm zealous, and I'm I'm thinking that I'm not judgmental when really I am. So I started writing raps and stuff like that, and because I had been writing since I was a little kid, and I stopped writing around 14 when my mother found my rap book, and it was all types of stuff in there, and she wasn't real appreciative of it, and my dad had some things to say to me like, look, you smarter than this. You should, if you gonna do it, like do it in. He wasn't saying be a Christian rapper at all. That wasn't what he was saying. He was saying just be smarter about this. You're an intelligent dude. Don't be like the normal person, like don't talk about the everyday struggle like how everybody talks about the struggle. You you have the power and the ability to do that. So yeah, so I had put it down for a while, and I told the Lord, if I'm gonna pick this back up, I just can't pick it up and I can't pick it up and rap about you and my life be looking the same. I can't minister um and my life be looking exactly the same. How can I talk about the Lord can change a life and I'm looking exactly like everybody else? My life doesn't look like it's changing. Like you doing the same stuff we doing. You cursing the teacher out just like us. Um, you failing this and that class just like us. Like there's nothing different about you, Keith. Like, you chasing this and that person just like us. You hanging out with this and that person just like us. Um, and so that was it for me. I said I'm going to look different and I'm going to be different. I'm going to I'm going to rap. I'm going to be the best rapper that I can be. I'm going to be the best me that I can be. And when that happened, a lot of things did change for me. People did begin to look at me differently for some good reasons, for some bad. I remember there was a point where I almost like I cut my friends off for a little bit, and I was like, I'm not rocking with y'all because y'all say y'all Christians and y'all not acting like this. And my friends, they were like, well, bye. Well, my friend Omari, he was like, bye, like real quick. He wasn't rocking with it. And but the Lord spoke to me about that as well. It's like, I don't know what, I won't offend anybody. Um I don't want to offend anybody, but the Lord just spoke to me about it, about like just doing away with my friends, and it's like maybe not the right thing to do. And so, especially if you want people to change and you want people to see the change in you and the work that the Lord can do in you, why isolate yourself from people? It's real simple things like that. And so yeah, so I got out of high school. I was class clown in my high school. Like it was like when I really became myself, that's when people began to gravitate towards me. So all this other time, all the other times, all these other years, I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, or maybe I wasn't just maybe I just wasn't comfortable within myself, and that all changed. When I sought the Lord and I really said enough is enough. I'm tired of going to school and not being a light. I'm tired of going to work and not being a light. I'm tired of hanging out and not being a light and not showing you. Um, it all changed. And so I took that same attitude with me to college. Um, I want to I'm thinking I'm going to go to college and everything, and I'm like, okay, well, high school is one thing, new level, new demons. You never know what's going to happen. Before it happens, hindsight is 2020. So I get to college, and I'm thinking like, yo, I just want to impact this campus for the Lord. So in some respects, I felt like I failed in high school because no, what I mean? I don't know if anybody came to Christ, but looking back, people did say that I influenced them, and there are people now to this day like, look, man, I follow God the way that I do because of you, and that was back then, but like you never know what the Lord is doing in somebody's heart, you know, and so, I felt like I low key failed a little bit, So I'm like, here I am, I'm gonna go the extra mile, now and all of that type of stuff. And um, I'm gonna go even further. Lord, here's a chance for me to do this and that for you. And And really, I was of the belief that I should be in a church, and I should be in a church home, and I should be rooted and grounded in a church. I should be planted in a church. Um, I think I was there for a week. I was hanging out with my roommate and all of that type of stuff, and getting to know new people and stuff, and trying to be intentional with relationships, but be intent about them knowing that for Christ I live and for Christ I'll die, and that's a weird um balance, to have. Um, you know, in the middle, hey, I'm a cool guy, but I got this Jesus thing going on in my life, and yeah, so we'll talk about that another time, and how one should maneuver that type of lifestyle, because it has nothing to do with you. Um, so we'll touch on that another time. Um, I'm trying to remember the story so long ago, but not gonna say I remember it like it was yesterday. But um, yeah. So I would say, yeah, I'm kicking it for about a week, and already, I'm thinking like, yo, I'm away from home. It's gonna be so much temptation here. I need to be in a church. I need to be in a church. I need to be in a church. Um, and so I see this group of people praying on the library steps, that you see on the cover of this podcast, of this particular podcast. So I'm praying on the steps. I'm just kicking it on the steps, and I see them praying. And of course, when you're a believer, you're excited to see another believer. It's like, and this is a bad example because it's not a spiritual one, so it's a bad example, but it's an example. Um, like it's like when you are when you're a fan of a team, and a fan of a team that nobody's really a fan of, and you see somebody that's a fan of that team, a genuine fan of that team, you want to spark up a conversation with them, or you just see them and you're like excited about it. So I was excited to the point where I'm like, hey, if they're believers, they won't mind me hopping into the prayer circle with them. So they're praying, and I hop into the prayer circle with them, and they open up their eyes and they see me, and they see this guy, this young guy. I'm 18, this fresh faced guy. I, fitted cap on, I don't look like any of them. And at the time I didn't really notice it. But I noticed that the women, all they wore was skirts. But I'm thinking like, okay, well, this is one particular day. I wasn't really thinking about it like that. Um so, they all introduced themselves to me. They're really happy to see me in the circle and stuff. And I'm like, hey, what church are you guys a part of? I would love to be a part of this, part of a church, da 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 da. Because I'm thinking, if you're zealous and it's a group of y'all, it's a group of young people. And if y'all are excited to be praying, and, you know what I mean? It's a group of y'all excited to be praying on the steps in front of a whole bunch of people. I think like even that to me is radical. You know what I mean? Like you're not praying to be seen, but you are praying to be seen. Like you, in such a way, like the Bible says, like don't pray for like an audience and all of that type of stuff. But I genuinely, even to this day, I don't think that's what they were doing. Um, but yeah, so that's what's going on in my head. I'm like, yo, if y'all are zealous, I'm trying to be zealous like how y'all are, and maybe around that time I thought like a fire was dying out, and I did not want that to be the case for me. Um, it wasn't. I had a good understanding of the gospel, so I knew that my salvation wasn't at stake at that point. Um, I just was like, look, I love God, and I don't want I don't want my fire for him to burn out. I don't. It's not as lit as it was, but I don't want it to burn out. I want it to be ignited even more. So, at the end of them praying, one of the guys who he was like, yeah, I'm starting up a church real soon. Here's my number. Can I take your number? I gave him my number with so much zeal. I'm like, yes, you can have my number. Da 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 da. Fast forward a time, I'm going to another church that's like right up the street from the school for a couple of weeks. This elderly lady, she's coming to pick me up and take. I don't know. I can't tell you how. No, okay. So I went one Sunday. I walked to church one Sunday. The first Sunday I was there, I said I gotta find a church. First Sunday I was there. I walked to a church nearby. So, and I met a lady there. She was an older woman. She said, look, I'll start bringing you to church as much as you want to come. I said, okay. So I was going there, but at the same time, keeping in contact with the guy who was starting the church. So they're having like little meetings and stuff like that. I wouldn't even call them, um, they weren't, I don't want to call them informals. That's not the right term, but they weren't informationals. Um, But they were like, hey, we about to start a church. They would like plant that in people's ears, as they did ministry or what have you. But yeah, so I'm going to this church with this lady until the church starts up. So he's in contact with me, and we're building some sort of a relationship. And it was what it was. Um, so, and they ultimately they got a large, and looking back, they kind of used me in a sense to like bring other people in. They found out that I rapped. They found out, hey, you go to the school, you're a freshman, da 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 da. Like if you're a cool looking guy in their eyes, at least you're a cool looking guy. If you bring, what I mean, I'm sure you'll help bring people in. So they started holding Bible studies and what have you, and slowly but surely, I started noticing I'm saying things, and here you're disagreeing with what I'm saying. For a split second, I'm thinking maybe you're wrong, but me, I've only been walking with the Lord legitimately or strongly for about 4 years now. Maybe I don't know, So I'm thinking I've never had a real father in the faith, or I did, but I left him in Philly, but I'm from Jersey, so I didn't see him all the time. So I'm like, I never had like a real one, you know? So I'm like, okay, maybe, Lord, this is you taking me to another level. Maybe this is you taking me to new heights. So I'm soaking everything up that they're saying. Um, um, they're talking about signs and wonders and um, things that you need to be saved and stuff like that. And I didn't know any of this stuff. So I'm thinking, yo, y'all got it together. Here's this new level to Christianity that I haven't even tapped into yet. You guys are the strong ones, and I'm the weak one. So they're prophesying over me. They're speaking in tongues to me. They're kind of like wondering why I don't speak in tongues, but it wasn't like a big issue or anything like that. The tongues thing, I never really wanted it, because what I did know is that some people, they view it as you have to speak in tongues in order to be saved, and I wasn't rocking with it. And so yeah, so I'm yeah, so where am I? So and that's how I felt throughout the whole ordeal. Where am I? Um so yeah, it was a transitional period for me. Ultimately, music and my music became an issue. Um Me rapping was an issue. Um Me singing well became an issue. Um There was one time we were and there was this another radical group of people. It was two people, and they were really really zealous. And one, claimed to be prophetic. They spoke in tongues, and one of the girls, she never wore any pants. She always wore skirts, and that became alarming to me. That for some reason that was like one of the triggers for me. I'm like, skirts don't affect me necessarily, and when I say skirts, they were like long skirts. I'm like, they're not affecting me directly, but why doesn't this sit well with me? Why is this an issue for me? And so I really couldn't pinpoint it. And I found out, like, hey, we don't believe that women should wear men's clothing. I was like, that's not, in my mind, I'm thinking that's not men's clothing. So that was like one of the first indicators that something was off to me. It was frowned upon for me to party. It was frowned upon for me to hang out with certain people. It was frowned upon for me to just be a regular college student. And I think that's what really ultimately led to my departure from that school. It wasn't so much the school as it was the impact that was over me at that school. So yeah, so music became an issue, and that was like one of the last straws for me. So like you're telling me this and that, I don't agree with. I didn't grow up believing that. I didn't grow up believing this, but just because I didn't grow up believing something, that doesn't mean that is that it's wrong. So I'm still thinking maybe it's me. And before I knew it, I didn't know what I believed. And I'm mixing in my old stuff with the new stuff that I was finding out, and I'm really, 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 really confused about the gospel, about His grace, about mercy, about His love overall, and in the conditions of His love. I was really, really confused by it. I was confused to the point where, I was just telling people anything that I believed that day, and I knew that that wasn't good, so I even stopped doing that altogether. I'm like, how can I testify, or how can I minister, or how can I say this and that, and I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point. I don't know what I'm talking about. God, I don't know who you are. This whole time, and for 4 years, you mean to tell me that I've been doing it wrong, that I've been saying the wrong things, that I've been believing the wrong thing, that this whole time that I've been going to hell and I did not know it? You can imagine how you can imagine how I felt. Like I didn't know which way was up and which way was down and which way I was headed. There came a time when I wanted to take a break. I said, I need a break from this church because, yeah, I feel bound. I'm in bondage. I feel, because, they were talking to me about music and the type of music I should do. And, well, you shouldn't rap. It was just something stupid like rapping on quote unquote secular beats. Quote unquote secular beats. And I'm like, well, I'm rapping on these beats until I get my own beats. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't stop, It's like, well, these beats are they're submitted to the devil and all that. And I'm like, I don't know about all of that, I'm not so sure. I'm not saying that they're not, but you can say that they are, like, like you weren't there, and then it was a lot of, well, Keith, I feel, and Keith, I believe, and Keith, this and that. And it's like, and I'm thinking that the guys that, when you talk about God, if it can't be backed up in the scripture, then you probably shouldn't say it. I don't think that they were of that school of thought. So it was different. It was puzzling, and it was a really trying time in my life. And this was all throughout my freshman year. And I don't think I ever like really fully recovered from it. Um, and so it came down to a point when they went on a missions trip, and they asked me did I want to go. Now the missions trip it wasn't out of it wasn't international. It was a national mission trip up in the Northeast. Um, they were going to Boston, New Jersey, New York, this place, that place, and of course I'm going. I'm going to go because that's where I'm from, and it was all spring break long, and it just wasn't a good trip, but it was an eye-opening trip. Um, yeah, yeah, we're on the road and all of that stuff, and one of the people, and it's just the three of us. It's the pastor and the co-pastor and myself. Um, and I'm just in the car, I was told that it was going to be about 50 of us, and then 50 dropped to 12, and then 12 dropped to 9, and then 9 dropped to just the three of us. But by this time I had made a commitment, and my dad was told that they were coming to his church and all of that type of stuff. So yeah, so I'm in it, and on the way from Rhode Island or someplace, they were like, well, I just feel like the Lord is displeased with us. I feel like the Lord is displeased with us. We need to stop and pray. And Keith, I believe that it's you that the Lord is displeased with, and da 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 da. And I'm like, what? Like, huh? But I'm in the back seat, and I'm like, she was like, Keith, pray harder. And I'm like, I'm praying, I'm trying. And I'm like, but the whole time I'm thinking like, yo, I don't believe this. And maybe I just need to grow up here and say, I don't believe this. I can't live life under this microscope that I didn't think was there. Or I always thought it was there, but I never thought that it was that big, that microscope, I'm thinking, yeah, God cares, and he's upset when we sin and all of that type of stuff, but he's not, but we pray, we repent, and we move on, and we live life, and we go about our lives, um, and try to please God with our lives and stuff like that. But I'm not thinking that once I ask for forgiveness, that it's still an issue, So, and I'm like, yo, this I don't know, man. And they told me some stuff on the trip, and I won't say too much about that, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was like, Keith, I believe that God is, because some of this stuff I believe, you know, like stuff like Keith, I believe that the Lord has made you this and that, and then it was like, but you gotta do this before you get that. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know. I just don't know. So that trip was an eye opener. But prior to that, I think and I'm all over the place. But prior to that, I told him, I said I need a break, and on one hand, it was okay for me to take a break because I felt bound. I was like, I'm taking a break, but every other day I'm getting a phone call and I'm getting asked when I'm coming back and all of that type of stuff, and I'm like, this isn't no break. If you on my back. You're on my back way more now than you were before. A part of it is when you take a break from places like that, um, they'll they'll believe that you're going to go astray and that you're not going to be okay and all of that type of stuff. And that type of mentality and that type of teaching and that school of thought is that of a cult. When you feel like somebody isn't going to be okay outside of your teaching spiritually, that's not right, and that's not how you should think. That's cultish. That is very cultish. Um, um, my cousin was telling me about this type of stuff like early on, and he was like, "Hey man, this doesn't sound too good," and I'm like, "I don't know, I'm like, no man, you bugging, they all right, they cool people," and he was like, "I'm not sure, you know." and I didn't take heed. But some lessons you have to learn by yourself. And um, so I got back and I had finals and all that type of stuff, and I'm like, I got a test today. I'm late for this test, and it was like, we believe that the Lord will allow you to pass, and I'm like, I don't know about that. So I was like, okay, well, if you say that the Lord will, Keith, you gotta have faith, this, that, and the third, and so I had all the faith in the world. I still failed the mess out of that test. I still failed the mess out of that final. I still had to take that final again. I still had to redo that class. So I'm thinking that the Lord is going to honor this and that just because, and it wasn't the case. Um, so yeah, fast forward to me going home. I went home for the summer. And I'm still all out of whack. My mind, I still don't know what's going on. And I don't want to go to church because I'm like, the God, whoever is being served at that church, I don't know. And my father, he just told me, he was like, look, you don't need to, what you need to do is you need to stop kicking it with them. And I don't think he knew like the severity of it all. I'm like, I'm not just kicking it with these people. These are supposed to be like my father and quote unquote and my mother in the faith and all that type of stuff. And but he tried to make it real plain, like just stop kicking it with them. Stop going to their church, stop doing this and that. And he was like, tell him I said that you can't anymore. And so here I am, and when school starts back up and I'm like, yo, this is gonna be a new year, but so the whole year, I'm ducking. Like, where are you? You back? I'm ducking. I'm at this point, and I forget what it was that was like just the end of it all. Like I really just broke down, and something in my brain just cracked. It just cracked. I'm kicking it. I was with him again, and something was said. Well, I don't remember what was said, but it's something in my brain just went off, and I was done, And they were like, "When are you coming back?" And I'm not being clear with them, but I'm saying I don't know. I don't know when I'll be back, but please stop calling me. Please don't hit me up. They're like, "Yo, Keith, we praying for you." I'm like, don't pray for me because I'm thinking, I'm on all types of crazy stuff. I'm thinking Barack Obama is the Antichrist and all that type of stuff. I was crazed. So here I am, a person who can't stop sinning, believing I can't stop sinning, but I'm believing that every time I sin, I'm going to go to hell or something like that. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on, and so what I did was I just shut everything off. I said, God, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are. And you're not helping me understand who you are. And so until you do, I'm maybe I call myself giving God an ultimatum or whatever, but I just shut down. And I gave me permission to do whatever it was that I wanted to do with whomever I wanted to do it with. Cause I can't, God, if I'm under this type of scrutiny and there's no way out of this, I might as well go to hell because I can't do it how you want me to do it. I'm just incapable. So I shut it all off. I was doing whatever I wanted to do with whomever I wanted to do it with. I didn't smoke. I don't drink. It just wasn't in me. I just never saw the purpose for it. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. But you can imagine what I was doing. Women women and girls have always been my vice. And So I was indulging in things that I wasn't supposed to be doing as a believer. But at that time, I wasn't a believer. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't call myself a believer. And part of me used that as an excuse to do what I wanted to do. And so during this time, one of my friends, who I wound up going, but I'm like, God, I still want who you are, but show me who you are. And I found myself like still, I'm like, okay, like just to get these people off my back, maybe I'll go with them to one thing, but it's not going to be in their court. The ball isn't going to be in their court. So I went, they asked me to come to something. I was like, where is it? They was like, oh, it's going to be at Morehouse. I'm like, okay. I'm like, who's holding it? Such and such is doing it. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go because they not doing it. And maybe I could look at their faces to see like what they agree with and what they don't agree with. Because maybe they don't know. But so I went to the place. There was a guy preaching. His name was Brandon Bennings, and he passed away a few years ago from brain cancer. So shout out to Brandon. I love you, Brandon. I appreciate you and all that you've done for me. It was very small in the moment, but it was very it was very it was a very big deal afterwards, and I greatly appreciate it. Um, So I'm at this place, and I don't remember what the sermon was about. I couldn't tell you. But at the end of it, he tells everybody in the sanctuary to turn to your neighbor and pray with the person, da 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 da. So I'm praying with this guy, and at the end of the prayer, we exchange numbers and stuff. I'm like, here I go again, praying with somebody and exchanging numbers. And you know, he hit me up and we chatted every so often, real quick. He asked me what my interests were and all of that stuff. Because I think the challenge was to keep up with the person. Like, if you don't know him, keep up with him and keep tabs on him and stuff. He did a way better job at it than me. So one day he asked me, he was like, I know you rap and I know you do videos. I mean, you do videography. You going to school for film. Do you want to go to this Christian rap music video shoot? And I went. He couldn't go, but he had a friend go, um and that friend was like the star of the video, and he ultimately, like, the same day he was like, hey, I got a church informational that I need to go to. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for a church. So I'll go. Cause I was like, God, I don't know who you are, but I do want to know who you are. So I went to the church. I went to the informational, rather, and there was a guy talking, and he was talking about a church that I had longed for, a church that I didn't even know that I needed, a church that I had prayed for but didn't even know I was praying for it. You know, a church that I'm like, yo, this is exactly what I want, and then some. Um, so I got back, but that church wasn't starting for another 2 months or 3 months or whatever. It was starting way before then, way before I could like really get my feet grounded in anything. So what I had to do was, until that time, church hop, church hop. But um, homeboy, what he did was he was like, "Yo, I've been listening to this person, and they were sermons, and what it was it was sermons from a guy that I had grew up listening to his rap albums and stuff. But he's preaching now. And I've heard him preach, and I always thought he was a good preacher. But here he is preaching, like, for real, for real. He's starting his church, and he's in Philly. So a part of me thinks, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to go to Philly and all of that stuff. That wasn't the plan. But I began to listen to his podcast. And I began to devour those things. Morning, noon, and night for like 2 weeks. I was not listening to anything. I didn't even listen to music for about a week. For like 2 weeks, I wasn't listening to music. On my way to class, listening to his sermons on podcasts and on going anywhere. I'm like, yo, listen to this person. Just getting me back to where I needed to be. and he sounded like he was confirming a lot of things that I had, confirming and denying a lot of things that I had questions about. Um, and I realized, I'm like, I wasn't the immature one in my faith. You know what I mean? I wasn't the wrong one in certain aspects, you know? And it restored my faith in the Lord. I was like, Lord, show me. Show me who you are. And he definitely did. Um, and so to this day, you know, and that church ultimately started, and that's where I'm at now. And I love my church dearly. I don't think there's a person in there at that church that loves their church the way that I love my church, because I have a different story. And I don't think that's how I think that's how it should be. Everybody should have their own story. And um my church isn't without its problems. My church isn't perfect. I don't believe any church is. And we'll talk about that on another podcast, maybe somewhere down the line. But yeah, I had but that's not to say that it wasn't a story. It wasn't a storytell ending. I still now had these I still now had issues that I didn't have before. You know, realizing, oh wow, women women gravitate towards me in such a way, and I actually can engage with this woman in this way. You know, and that's something that hasn't left, and it's an everyday struggle. Some days I fight it, some days I don't, and but but grace be to God, and and all of that, because I know that whenever I do fall, or if I do fall, or that I'm not condemned, that he still loves me and that he still cares for me. And it's not like, so therefore, like Romans 12:1 and 2 says, therefore now shall we go on in sin? And I'm going to misquote it, but here's the gist. So therefore shall we go on in sin so that grace may abound? God forbid. So it's not to say like, hey man, you can sin as much as you want to, and God will be pleased. It's like there's such thing as grieving the Holy Spirit, and you don't want to grieve the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is there to convict you. You know what I mean? And say, hey man, you getting off track. Like, let's get back on track. And I don't want to, but the Lord will be with you. And I learned that yeah, yeah, you have to know the Lord for yourself, and you have to know um, that His word is true, and that you never take someone's word over what Scripture is saying, and over, you know what I mean? Like, you have to study, you have to show yourself approved. You have to study, you know what I mean? And you have to really be in it for yourself. Don't just take someone's word for it. And so when somebody starts talking about, well, you got to do this and you got to do that in order to be saved and all of that stuff, I mean, if it's anything outside of the gospel, if it's anything outside of what the Lord told you, not what the Lord told you, but anything outside of what the Lord has given for us, you know what I mean? Anything outside of the gospel, which is, for if you confess in your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, and and that he rose, you know what I mean? And if you believe all of that, you shall be saved. I mean, and believing that is like, look, and to know that you believe in that is like, yo, does your life look like you believe in that? When you believe something, people can see it. If I believe my pants are on fire, I'm not just gonna be sitting there like my pants are. I'm gonna be looking like my pants are burning. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna be trying to pad it out. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be trying to pad out on stop, drop, and roll and all of that type of stuff. So yeah, so I try to warn people against anything that's outside of the gospel, anything that doesn't come by grace through faith. Anything that looks like works, anything that you have to do to perform, that is not the gospel. Now, faith without works is dead. So once again, I'm going to act accordingly. But if somebody's telling you got to jump through hoops and all of that stuff for God to accept you, don't believe that. And if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to argue it, this is one thing that I'm willing to have a conversation about, and willing to. I'm not gonna say, I'm not just gonna say believe or anything like that, but like one thing that I'm willing to have dialogue about, and so yeah, because I believe that is very important. You should know your faith. You shouldn't, and so when something like that occurs, because I encountered a whole bunch of cults while I was there, a whole bunch of schools of thought, that there is no God. I encountered that, but like there is a God, but there you must be baptized in order to be saved. You must speak in tongues in order to be saved. You must do this and that. And it's like no, 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 ma'am, no, sir. Um, um, I think that's one of the tricks of the enemy, that where it makes you feel that you have to go above and beyond um, the very simple thing that the Lord has given us to do. He wishes that no man perish. And so it's not going to give you something unattainable. Like, oh, well, you got to, like, oh, you got to be quicker than that. You got to do this and that. Believe, confess and believe. Confess and believe. Confess and believe. So I thank you all for listening to this podcast. It's not like any of the other ones. I may not have been super duper clear or anything like that. I apologize. But yeah, it's not one of the normal podcasts. But I love you all, and yeah, know the Lord for yourself. That's what I have to say. Get into a good Bible teaching church if you are not in one, and love the Lord with all your heart. I'll see you all. You all will hear from me next week. I love you. Bye-bye. God bless.